In the Japanese neighborhood of Ochanomizu, we see that Zen Seizaki and his team of special investigators raid Suiri Pharmaceutical because of the company's violation of health and drug laws. After the raid, we see Assistant Officer Atsuhiko Fumio busy compiling the confiscated files when Seizaki walks into the office. As they go through the files meticulously, Seizaki asks Fumio the specific reason for the violation. Fumio explains that there has been a ban on the false advertising of their new drug called Agras. The company had requested fake data from a few universities, which would make the drug seem more effective than it actually was. Seizaki tells him that their task now is to find evidence that Japan's Suiri bribed these 4 universities. Their raid gets covered on the news, but the subject then switches to the mayoral elections that are soon to take place for the new city called Shiniki. One of the candidates is Ryuichiro Namaru. Seizaki and Fumio get called into the head of prosecution, Yasuaka Morinaga's office. He inquires about any progress made in the case. Seizaki assures him that they will have a breakthrough soon enough because Japan's Suiri didn't really hide anything. Morinaga is certain that there must be some illegal activity going on because the accusation was made by the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare. Back at the office, as they are going through the material, Fumio notices a stain on one of the papers. Seizaki traces his fingers on it. Upon a closer look, he realizes that it's a bloodstain. The page belongs to a university called Holy Raffaella Medical School. The pages have been glued together. When Seizaki pulls them apart, they are met with the sight of something no one expects on a paper. Tiny particles of hair fall out. The pages are blackened with what Seizaki assumes is skin and fingerprints. Fumio points at the letter F, scribbled over and over on it. Seizaki states that whoever had done this was most definitely not in the right state of mind. The next morning they reach the medical school and ask for Dr. Inaba, the associate professor anesthesiologist. But according to the receptionist, the man isn't present. This alarms the prosecutors. They arrive at the professor's apartment, but no one's opening the door, though a muffled sound of classical music can be heard. They open the door. Once the warrant is issued, the music is blaring through the apartment. The prosecutors enter one of the rooms left ajar. To their utter shock, Dr. Inaba lies lifeless in a recliner, his clothes stripped off and body hooked to a general anesthesia machine. His expression looks eerily serene. Seizaki and Fumio then arrive at the Tama East Central Police Station. They ask Shinobu Kujin, a police inspector, to aid them in their investigation. Seizaki is willing to give all the information. He reiterates that the general anesthesia machine was set to gradually increase the amount of anesthesia to a lethal dosage at a stretch of 30 hours. Because of this reason, the death is going to be ruled out as suicide. Kujin notes that there was no trace of physical abuse found on the man. He had even left behind a will. Fumio adds that a couple had frequently visited Inaba for the past 2 months. They have identified the man, Tomokazu Ano, but the woman is still unknown. Kujin lets them know that he will start the investigation from the man's identity. Seizaki hands him the page which they had previously discovered. Afterwards, the prosecutor gets a call from Kujin informing him about the page. The skin and blood belong to Inaba. Moreover, the man, Tomokazu Ano, happens to be the private secretary of a Diet member of the National Legislature of Japan. Not just any member, but Ryuichiro Nomaru, currently running for Shiniki's mayoral election. Seizaki reports the information to Morinaga. The latter tells him that he is certain that there is more to the suicide of Inaba than what they already know. He cautions Seizaki to be extremely careful in reporting the information he obtains because they are dealing with evil. Shiniki is an independent city developing in the western part of Japan. The purpose of its construction is to reduce the over-centralization in Tokyo. Shiniki can be considered the second Tokyo. Seizaki relays to Fumio the information he has received, and the latter realizes that the case goes deeper than just some drug scandal. He makes the assumption that if Nomaru is somehow responsible for Inaba's death, then it could all be related to the election. The assistant then shows him the footage of the mystery woman, but her identity can't be traced from that angle. Seizaki informs him that he'll tell Kujin to keep working on Inaba's case, while he himself is going to dig a bit more about Ano, whereas Fumio volunteers to investigate the candidate office. Seizaki joins Ariyoshi Hunter, his college friend, at a bar. He happens to be a journalist. The prosecutor asks him for a favor, telling him that he should consider it as a friend rather than a journalist. The favor turns out to be inquiring about Nomaru, and Hunter isn't permitted to write about it. Later that night, Seizaki and Fumio follow Ano. He picks up a young girl and takes her to a restaurant. To their astonishment, she ends up in a car with Shinzo Chijima, the president of the Tokyo Constructions Contractors Federation. Seizaki watches with gritted teeth. He tells Fumio to follow them. Ano appears a few seconds after the car leaves. Seizaki starts tracking their location and follows Ano, all the while keeping in touch with Fumio, who updates him on the couple stopping at a hotel. The assistant wants to reveal his identity to the hotel staff in order to catch them in the act, though as frustrating as it may be, Seizaki instructs against it. He plans on catching the girl alone, hoping that she will rat out Chijima. Fumio follows the girl all the way to the 7th floor of an apartment complex. He informs Seizaki over text. The man tells him to wait it out till the next day to report it to Morinaga. In the meantime, Hunter gives Seizaki the unfortunate news that there has been no recent stories on Construction Contractors Federation. However, he has a hunch that Nomaru has tempted the Federation with something big. As soon as the call ends, Seizaki receives a long text from Fumio. He realizes that something isn't right when Fumio doesn't pick up his phone. He speeds off to reach the assistant. Upon entering the apartment, he opens the door slightly left open, only to find that he is a little too late as he is met with the lifeless figure of Fumio's hanging body. The phone slips from Seizaki's hand. The screen reveals that towards the end of the message, he had bid Seizaki farewell and had thanked him for everything. Fumio's death gets ruled out as a suicide because of how the picture has been painted, but Seizaki believes that there is more to it. Fumio simply didn't have any reason to off himself. He was most definitely murdered. Morinaga wants Seizaki to be more careful than ever now. The prosecutor later interrogates Miss Emiku Hirametsuo. He asks her about her actual name, but she claims that this is the real one. A flashback to September the 22nd begins. Seizaki and Kujin try to get the hang of the situation. Fumio's last text to Seizaki looks like a will, and the apartment only contained Fumio's fingerprints. Kujin offers to work together with Seizaki to catch the culprit. They start going through the evidence that Kujin has put together for them on the board. First is the apartment that the girl lives in. The tenant happens to be from a political supporters group. He goes by the name Yoshiyuki Fukuyama. The man is from Keika Itsuki's party, which is in opposition to Nomaru's. This means that the candidates for the election are connected in private. Seizaki points out that they can't follow the girl from that night anymore, because if it resulted in Fumio's death, then this means that they already know about the investigation. He further speculates that if Ano keeps giving girls to powerful men, then there are probably several of them. They both come to an agreement to start their investigation from there. Kujin then shows him that he was able to secure Dr. Inaba's laptop. In the present time, inside the interrogation room, Seizaki asks about her relationship with Ano. She replies that the man happens to be her grandfather's friend. Emiko claims to have known him since she moved to Tokyo 2 years ago and has been in touch with him ever since. The man showed her apartments, bought her food and expensive clothes. This obviously raises suspicion, but she keeps on pressing the idea that he is doing it because of her grandfather. Ano is even generous enough to let her stay in one of his apartments rent-free. Seizaki is persistent in getting information out of her. He questions her whereabouts on the 23rd of September. The scene switches to the 22nd of September. Seizaki asks for an update from the digital forensics officer named Ben Mitoni on Dr. Inaba's laptop data analysis. The man tells him that so far he has found the usual stuff. However, there's an encrypted file with a secured password. He asks for 2 weeks to crack it. The TV in Seizaki's office displays the news of the mayoral election, now only a week away. Nomarui is having a rally, promising to make Shiniki surpass Tokyo's prosperity. Meanwhile, Itsuki talks about Shinki needing the youth support. Just then, Hunter, Seizaki's journalist friend, rings him up, reminding him that they have to make a move soon. At present time, the interrogation continues. Emiko tells him that on the 23rd, she was with Ano at a hot spring. Seizaki says that he left early. She agrees. Seizaki then asks for the names of the rest of the men she was with at the hot spring. She informs them that there were 3 old men, Mr. Ota and Mr. Kimura. On the 23rd, Hunter provided Seizaki with a list of members in a golf tournament. They were from the Japanese Doctors League and the Tokyo Trade Union Confederation, both supporting opposite parties. The former support the Liberal Justice Party, while the latter support trade unions to the People's Life Party, but were weirdly playing golf like a bunch of friends. Hunter and Seizaki had spied on the men at the inn. Kujin had joined them as well. They patiently waited. Ano had then left without Emiko. Once the older men had left, and Emiko was the only one left behind, Seizaki couldn't wait any longer. He told her to come down to the prosecutor's office. At the present time, interrogation resumes again. Seizaki asks about the identity of the third man at the inn, but she blames the alcohol for her forgetfulness. He then questions if she had any sexual relations with them. Upon hearing the question, she cracks up laughing. Seizaki is slowly getting irritated with her behavior. Emiko admits to it, almost glorifying the act, calling it love. The scene cuts to Seizaki, updating Morinaga on the latest development in the investigation. He insists that getting her to confess about rigging the election could help them catch those people. Morinaga is doubtful, but Seizaki pushes for the matter to be taken to the Imperial Council. He is certain that he can get her to crack up. Morinaga at last agrees to the meeting and informs him that it will take place in 2 days at 1 in the afternoon. It's 11:47 p.m. on the 25th of September. Emiko is still in the interrogation room. She tells them that she knows they want her to confess that she slept with those 3 men because Ano had told her to. Emiko is even willing to sign the testimony paper. The men are obviously taken aback by the sudden compliance, but apparently she is doing it because she feels sorry for Seizaki. Emiko proposes a deal, information on Seizaki in exchange for her signature. He tells her about having a wife and a son. She even asks about his hobbies and childhood dreams. The girl is getting on his nerves. Emiko switches the questions to contraception, which spirals down into more questions. He tries to remain clear-headed, but when she asks questions like, 2 people whose opinions on war differ, then should they coexist? Should kids get murdered? Seizaki loses his composure and starts yelling at her for trying to justify murder, but she quickly denies it and agrees that it's the worst thing ever. But what is justice to him? The scene then switches to a very tired-looking Sekizaki entering the interrogation room once again, only to find Officer Okuda zoned out, all alone and with no sign of Emiko. Seizaki runs out of the building in desperation to somehow get a hold of her, but she has already escaped. The time for the meeting arrives. Seizaki sullenly walks towards the conference room, with Morinaga telling him to just stay calm and deliver his report. Just when Seizaki is about to open his mouth to give his report, Nomaru walks in and takes a seat, leaving the prosecutor in utter disbelief. He turns to Morinaga in helplessness, but the man only tells him to proceed with the report. They meet in private, just Nomaru, Morinaga, and Seizaki. The prosecutor asks for an explanation. Nomaru starts off with the development of Shiniki, saying that even though it seemingly appears to be an economic development zone, it has another purpose not known to the population. He had asked Dr. Inabar to work on the lag in drugs. Patients will keep losing their lives if the drug doesn't reach them on time. Then there is the Tokyo Construction Contractors Federation, whom he has asked to show a bit of laxity on the restrictions regarding construction. As for the Tokyo Trade Union Confederation, Nomaru has told them to comply with the new Labour Standards Act. In short, these groups are the voting factors that will also play an important role in constructing Shiniki. Seizaki asks what Nomaru is planning to do with the new city. According to the politician, he wants to test new laws in this new city, making it a testing ground for nations. To Seizaki's surprise, he isn't even interested in becoming the first mayor. It is already planned out that Kaiki Itsuki will be the mayor. They are going to revolutionize things with Shiniki, and for that they require a young candidate to be the driving force for the votes. Seizaki's fists tighten as he demands the answer for Fumio's murder. He wants to know if they did it for the sake of their plans. Afterwards, Itsuki is reported on the news as the first mayor of Shiniki at the age of 30. Seizaki thinks back to Morinaga denying their involvement in Fumio's and Inaba's death. They claim that Inaba's suicide took them by surprise, which is why they had assigned the investigation to Seizaki, but then Fumio lost his life. The higher-ups want to know the truth as well, and would like for him to continue with the investigation. Shiniki initiative is what they believe in, and he can choose to fight against them. But Nomaru warns him that he won't go easy on Seizaki. Afterwards, in the morning, Morinaga asks what Seizaki has decided to do. The man informs him that he doesn't agree with the rigging and will keep on investigating Fumio's and Inaba's death. At night, Seizaki is cooped up in his office, working on the case. He rings up Mitoni for the confirmation of the coordinates which Fumio seems to have visited. They show that he was rushing towards the upper floors, possibly the 6th or the 7th floor, and then entered the apartment at the end. Seizaki takes out his last text message, thanking Mitoni for the help. Kujin calls at the same time, sending him several camera angles showing the girl from Dr. Inaba's university visiting without Ano by her side. The police officer states that she should be the next person they look into. The next day, Seizaki enters Morinaga's. The man informs him of the disappearance of Itsuki, along with his close advisors. Moreover, his important election files have also been stolen. The head wants Seizaki to aid them in the search. However, the latter declines, stating that he has to focus on Fumio's investigation and would very much like for the head to let him interrogate the 2 women that are most likely involved in the deaths. Morinaga has some disturbing news for him. First of all, she's also missing. He enlightens Seizaki that the women are the same person. He has met her on occasions, and every time she is unrecognizable. She was initially brought in by Itsuki himself, with the aim that she lures men right into her clutches. The Shiniki initiative, without her, would have experienced a 10-year setback, and her name happens to be Ai Magase. Seizaki is left shocked by the news. Afterwards, he updates Kujin and Hunter with the latest development. The journalist has done some research on the new mayor, and the bottom line is that the man doesn't do anything without a purpose. Hence, he became a mayor with an agenda. Kujin doesn't have any new information, but he does ask Seizaki if he felt suicidal when interrogating Magase. The prosecutor denies it, saying that she did sound crazy, but then something dawns on him. Seizaki hurriedly calls Okuta. At the same time, there's breaking news. About 60 people stand on the edge of Shiniki's City Hall Tower's rooftop, including Okuta. The 3 men rush towards the city. Seizaki gets a call from Mitoni, informing him that he is finally able to crack the file. The data shows that there is a drug being developed by the name of Nyux, a sort of sleeping pill. Once taken, the person enters eternal, sleep without feeling any pain. Itsuki makes a broadcast appearance. He starts talking about how Shinik's purpose is to bring prosperity and progress. Itsuki then uses fire as an analogy for death, calling it something that they can now control, the same way humans can control fire. According to him, a new era has begun in which death is going to be recognized and will be welcomed with open arms. Itsuki then declares the first law of Shiniki, the right to death. The scene then switches to those people on the rooftop happily leaping towards their death. Seizaki thinks about how the deaths of Inaba, Fumio, and Okuda were all done willingly, but there was definitely someone behind it. The letter F most likely stands for female, for the devious Magase. An urgent meeting is held. It is reported that after 24 hours of Itsuki's appearance, there have been at least 237 suicides across the country, which is 4 times more than usual. Seizaki is asked the whereabouts of the man, but he reports that the video was just an online stream. Some of the members at the meeting suggest that the ones jumping off the rooftop look like some religious fanatics, and they should rule it out as such to the public. Nomaru silences everyone and states that the main problem isn't the man's policy, but Itsuki himself, because he is no longer in their control. He then asks if Morinaga will be able to arrest the mayor. The head replies that it all depends on Itsuki's next move, but they can try nonetheless. Later, at the Ministry of Justice, sits Morinaga, Seizaki, and the Vice Minister of Justice, named Yoshifumi Sakuro, discussing how Nomaru thinks that they have the authority like the police for finding the man. Sakuro tells them that there is enough authority in their hands which does enable them to investigate. However, Morinaga's point is that things would have been easier if they didn't have to investigate under the radar. They start off with what they already know. Shiniki stretches wide at 600 square meters, with a population of 2 million people. The city is going to be used as a testing ground for a nation with new laws and systems. Moreover, it's difficult to arrest Itsuki because according to the present Japanese law, charges cannot be pressed against someone who has legalized suicide. The only way then can get to him is if they are able to prove that he aided them in any way to commit suicide. Seizaki is willing to help find the man if he is provided assistance from both the Special Investigation Unit and the police department. Afterwards, Seizaki is in the car with Hunter. The latter shows him a polling site where about 3.4% people are in favor of the suicide law. Hunter then goes into detail about euthanasia, and how its passive intake has been legalized in many countries, which means that this lowers down the barrier for the current law announced by the mayor. Seizaki says that they will have to wait for his next move, because up next are the parliamentary elections, and Shiniki still doesn't have a parliament. The next morning, Seizaki is dozing off in his office when a new assistant is hired for his aide, a 23-year-old former court assistant, well informed on laws. Her name is Hiyasa Sekuro, the niece of Yoshifumi Sekuro. The news covers another video uploaded by Itsuki. It contains his voice talking about the suicide law. He proudly mentions the increase in the suicide rate after the announcement of the law. Itsuki sugarcoats it by referring to it as a way of attaining happiness. He does mention that if the votes are not in favor of the law by majority, then it will be abolished because in 12 days' time, the representatives for the Parliament of Shiniki will be selected. Afterwards, Hunter places a page containing 3 clauses and starts to explain Shiniki's menacing election system to Seizaki and Sakuro. Starting off with the first clause, the voting is done by the residents, which is an obvious one, but anyone present in Shiniki, no matter what their residential period is, can vote. Something important missing from this clause is the age limit, which means even babies can be used to cast a vote, which then enables the parents to cast a double vote online. The second clause states that anyone can run for the elections, which means even children can become candidates. The third clause mentions that those who stand at the election will have to declare if they are for or against the law. Seizaki points out that since Itsuki doesn't have a party of his own, he's going to use this to his advantage. The ones that are in the favor of the law will automatically become a member of his party. At the main headquarters of the police department, Seizaki and Sakuro are introduced to Torao, the director of Investigation Unit 1. Seizaki fills him in on the details of the Shiniki initiative, as the man is going to be a part of the investigation team. Seizaki also asks Torao to get someone from the Sexual Crime Investigations Department to be a part of the investigation unit as well. During his dinner with Sakuro and Nomaru, Seizaki is informed by the latter that he will soon announce running for Shiniki's parliamentary elections because he is certain that he can win the election and gain back Shiniki's control. This way they might be able to corner Itsuki. Seizaki and Sakuro are working in their office when she pulls up a video that has gone viral. It's about a boy named Taiyo, pleading to the public to stop his father from taking his own life. When they leave the office, Kujin is waiting outside. He joins the team as well, claiming that Seizaki could use a friend since he doesn't have a lot of those. The briefing begins. Seizaki explains that their main goal is to catch Kaika Itsuki, and for that to happen, they need to keep 2 things in mind: find out where he is, and to clarify the charges against him. He then splits the team into the investigation team and criminal charges team. One of the criminal charges that he can think of is abetment or aid in suicide. He wants them to find out that Itsuki did indeed drive those 64 people to their own deaths. Afterwards, he shows pictures of Ai Magase to Lieutenant Tsutsui from the Sexual Crime Investigation Department to investigate her. The latter is surprised at her changed appearance in each photo. 8 days remain for the parliamentary elections. One of the team members from the investigation subunit explains that they have diligently questioned people, have gone through security footage, but still no sign of Itsuki. Then, the criminal charges team breaks down their findings. After going through the online activities of the 64 people, the team couldn't find any proof on whether the man was involved in their death or not. However, what they did find is that over 80% of these people lived in close proximity inside Shiniki. It's definitely abetment at this point, but they need solid proof. Seizaki questions if they could actually dig out info on the location of those 64 people. Torao catches on. Seizaki wants them to find out if they got together prior to their fall. Itsuki must have made contact with them at that point. After a moment, Seizaki receives a call from Tsutsui. He has done some digging on Itsuki's family. His parents and grandparents at his family home in the district of Tochigi have long died. Moreover, Tsutsui has heard about some incident that took place back when Itsuki was in middle school. Something troubling happened between him and a fellow student, because of which he had to make frequent hospital visits. Later at night, Sasaki plugs in a USB into his computer containing data on Magase. The prosecutor and Sakuro are on the train. Sasaki tells her that he had asked Mitoni about data that even the special investigation team doesn't have access to. This includes school and hospital records, credit card information, all about Magase. The data also contains the fact that the doctor who Magase was visiting in elementary school was her own uncle, Kurauzu Sakabe, and currently has a clinic in Kyoto. Sakuro states that she is having a hard time understanding how Magase subjugates people the way she does. Sasaki agrees, but then again, people have died right after contacting her, even got Itsuki wrapped around her fingers, and Fumio's encounter lasted for only 15 minutes. Sakuro questions if Magase could have actually abated those 64 individuals towards suicide on her own. It sounds crazy, but Sasaki has spent time with her in that investigation room, and she is indeed one disastrous woman. The train ride comes to an end, and the duo makes it to Sakabe's pediatric psychiatric clinic. Sasaki informs him that Ai is a major witness, and they need to know everything about her. The man starts off by saying that she is a very bad child. He then narrates that she was adopted by her parents through an adoption agency at the age of 7. Even then, something was off about her. Many years later, he got a call from his brother and Ai's middle school teacher that they wanted some psychological evaluation done on a few students, including her. He got down to interviewing them. All of them were diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and they all said the same thing, that Magase had taken advantage of them. The kids were truly scared of her. When asked how she had done it, they said that she hadn't even laid a single finger on them, but only spoke. Sasaki doesn't believe it and wants to know the truth. Sakabe continues to narrate that he couldn't understand what they met until she walked into his clinic. He definitely felt enticed, even though she was a kid and his niece, but her body was calling out for him. Magase hadn't even uttered a word. He can't really explain it, but there was something about her body, her voice, her gait, and everything else. She had a sort of strong, perfumed aura around her. In the end, Magase wasn't held accountable for anything. Her uncle suggested she'd come for counseling. She accepted it because she wanted to be able to talk to people. After a year and a half, she was done with it, and that is the last time he had seen her. At that point, he had an epiphany that she didn't really need the counseling, but instead, he needed to be near her. With that realization, he closed his clinic and opened it here, where no one would know about him. Afterwards, they are back at work. Sasaki keeps staring blankly at the red dots littering the map that shows the location of those 64 deceased people. Torao takes him to the 17th floor to relieve some of the stress with kendo. Sakuro also takes part in it. Turns out the woman is a level 4 in kendo when Torao leaves to get some drinks. She confesses that she initially thought that being part of the special investigation team meant that they will have to take part in illegal activities and doing evil things for the sake of some conspiracy theory, but it looks like she was wrong. Sasaki quickly corrects her by saying that they are actually doing all that and will do even worse things in the future. Torao calls them over to watch the latest news update on Itsuki. His words seem to be controlled by Magase, as he states that the first day of Parliamentary election is nearing, and he would like for the people to hold a debate before that at the NHC broadcasting studio. It will be broadcasted live across the world. He will represent the supporters in favor of the law, and as many participants opposing the law can join. The purpose of this debate is for the voters to make the correct decision. Sasaki's special investigation team is stressing out. They want to catch the man even if it means for some other crime. Sasaki further shrinks the investigation team, telling the rest that they will be on the criminal charges team. Only 48 hours remain till the debate. The prosecutor later receives a call from investigator Sutsui, but Magase's voice pours through the speaker. He quickly asks about the investigator, and at the same time writes for Sakuro to track down the phone GPS. Magase seems to be standing near a road, asking Sasaki if he likes to play games. The man is so over her twisted talk. Magase starts going on about how she is a hero in these games, saving people from evil with her little group of friends or sometimes doing it alone to protect people's happiness. However, the people are too afraid to rise up against the devil that rules over them. Turns out she is standing with Tsutsui on a green belt as heavy traffic swishes on both sides. Magase tells him with a smile on her lips that she wants to be the one to save the people and bring them happiness. He calls her a murderer, saying that she needs to be arrested at once. Tsutsui then runs towards the heavy traffic and meets his end. Sasaki's eyes go wide realizing that Tsutsui just lost his life. A receipt for the purchase of an axe was found on Tsutsui's body. The next day at the office, Seizaki tells the team that since they weren't able to find any evidence on Itsuki's abatement, the man's arrest on the TV is impossible and announces the dissolution of the Special Investigation Team. The day of the live broadcast at NHC has arrived. Only 1 day remains for the elections. Seizaki and Nomaru are also present inside the studio. The latter asks if Seizaki is going to do something about Itsuki after the broadcast. The prosecutor affirms. Nomaru tells him that it's going to be pointless because Itsuki will horribly lose and will be left with nothing. Arresting or suing him will not affect what the public decides. Nomaru is confident that he'll win the election. The prosecutor questions if he is even aware of what Itsuki will throw his way. Apparently, they were the ones who laid down the mayor's political grounds. Therefore, he isn't worried. Seizaki walks into the parking lot. The whole special investigation team is present there. Flashback begins. Seizaki announces the disbandment. Someone in the team asks if Tsutsui's death was for nothing. Seizaki replies that after the debate at the NHC, he is personally going to abduct Itsuki. Instead of arresting Seizaki on the spot, because abduction is a crime, of course. However, the members join him. With newfound faith and strength, Seizaki assigns Sakuro to the task of negotiation, of finding any loopholes in the law and getting in touch with the public prosecutor's office through Morinaga. The flashback ends. The broadcast begins. A voting conducted prior to the broadcast is displayed on the screen. About 88% of people are against the suicide law. Furthermore, there's an increase of 2.8% in the suicide rate after the law. In the midst of it, Sakuro informs Seizaki that all their investigators have been deployed at their designated places. The announcer introduces the members of the debate panel. The ones in opposition of the law include Director Nobuo Niki from the Japan Communal Party, the representative of Revival Party, Akihiro Iwakuni, Haruomi Kashiwaba, the deputy representative from the People's Life Party, and lastly, the former Secretary General Ryuichiro Nomaru from the Liberal Justice Party. In their opposition sits Kaika Itsuki himself. The debate begins. Niki's argument is a social-economic one, stating that the suicide law has an adverse effect on the consumer rate, that because of it, there is a decline in the buying of things, while Iwakuni looks at it from a moral perspective, saying that if this law prevails, the society will be in shambles. People would start dying and disappearing. Next is Kashiwaba's turn. He directs a rhetorical question at Itsuki, stating that 64 people jumped off the building. They could have been stopped by him, couldn't they? He accuses Itsuki on abetting their suicides. He also mentions that an article in the laws of Japan specifically exists for abetment. Allowing this law would also turn the citizens into accomplices in the crime. Lastly, it's Nomaru's turn. He gives the debate an emotional touch. He uses the universal emotional argument to convey his point. Nomaru calls attention to the fact that a majority of people avoid death. Humans feel sorrow for the death of others and even struggle with processing it. Someone who enforces such a law is obviously void of any emotion. Itsuki sits there calmly listening to their arguments when it's finally his turn. The mayor's reply to Niki's argument is that the implementation of the suicide law doesn't mean that there will be an increase in the deaths of the consumers, because suicide is a form of escape, and when this law gets implemented, then suicide will become a choice. However, Niki rejects this assumption, saying that more people will do it. Itsuki explains his point of view by giving the example of marijuana, that due to its legalization in the Netherlands, there has been a decline in its consumption. Niki is baffled by the fact that Itsuki is comparing the legalization of a drug with suicide. Itsuki then moves on to Iwakuni's morality-based argument. The mayor replies that morals keep on changing and they aren't universally the same everywhere. He gives the examples of homosexuality and gender inequality, stating that the former is accepted these days while the latter wasn't an issue back then. Iwakuni tries to hold on to his argument by replying that acts such as murder and theft are universally considered immoral. Itsuki counters back by calling the suicide law something that an individual will think over, calling the act something moral. Kashiwaba, infuriated at Itsuki's argument, announces that morals and laws are two different things. He calls homosexuality something cultural and totally different from criminal acts. Itsuki cunningly reminds him that suicide itself isn't considered a crime in Japan. Itsuki then comes towards Nomaru's argument about how emotionless people cannot handle the suicide law. The latter states that humans are swayed with emotions, and sometimes such an act could be a mistake, and such mistakes are irreversible. Itsuki cleverly tells him that his goal is the same as Nomaru's. The suicide law will ensure that it isn't a mistake. A person can talk about it in the online forums before he offs himself. Nomaru again points out that such a debate cannot be void of emotions. Death cannot be chosen calmly. He then informs everyone that the consequences of such a law should be judged in reality instead of theorizing it. For this very reason, he introduces a guest standing with his mother. The kid happens to be Taiyo, who had urged the internet to save his father from taking his own life. Nomaru informs everyone that he had reached out to the kid, but they still don't know the whereabouts of his father. He then tells Itsuki and the viewers that this is why he doesn't want to enforce the suicide law, and hopes there are people still out there to stop others from making emotional decisions such as suicide. The kid then announces that he wants to run in the election as there is no age limit. Nomaru is willing to assist the kid and would even give up his own candidacy because at the end of the day, they both have the same goal: to put an end to the suicide law. Therefore, it doesn't matter which one of them gets elected into the parliament. They both bow to the viewers. The announcer informs everyone that they are receiving fax and mail from the viewers on how they were really moved by Nomaru. Itsuki acknowledges this. He also states that he is willing to see if the people will vote for, but first, the public need to know all the relevant information needed. Moreover, since the kid was able to post that video online with his own free will, it shows that he is his own individual. Itsuki then admits to Taiyo that he was wrong and asks the boy to remove his mask. To everyone's utter shock, he reveals that the kid is his own son, and the father, who was about to commit suicide, was also Itsuki. Shizaki's look stressed. Itsuki takes this opportunity to apologize to the kid. Taiyo's tears stream down his face. He asks why his father chooses to die. Apparently, the kid is sick and he needs a heart transplant. Like any other parent, Itsuki wants him to live, and for this reason, he wants to sacrifice himself so that his son could use his heart. Itsuki clarifies that his son's heart isn't the only reason for the suicide. The kid's weak heart actually made him think about the idea of suicide. Itsuki changes his answer and says that his son's heart isn't actually the reason he chooses to off himself. This is due to the fact that those who take their own lives are not permitted in the entire world to donate their heart. Shizaki watches in bewilderment as the man keeps uttering one bizarre thing after another. He proceeds to tell Taiyo that since this is going to be broadcasted around the world, then this means many people will chip in to help. However, he doesn't want it all to end with that. He would rather live in a world where this becomes a common practice, where death will not only bring about organ transplant, but much more. He wants to take his own life to prove to people that death isn't such a bad thing. One of the announcers states that they have received a lot of faxes and email from people willing to give up theirs for Itsuki. However, the man wants them to give theirs to Taiyo. This way, both father and son could keep on living. Still, he won't opt for it. He wants people to know that the suicide law will allow everyone to choose their own death. A world where Taiyo could live with his father's heart. This is the sort of value system they will have in the new era. Seizaki assures Sakuro that they are still going to stay on track and deal with this man. He informs the escort team to spare 2 people for Istuki's son and wife. Kujin and another officer will escort them. They will be addressed as the kid and wife team. The broadcast ends and Seizaki orders the teams to move. The escort team starts to move with Itsuki, while the route guards keep updating their passing to Seizaki. The escort team informs Seizak that they have heard some sort of an explosion. However, they continue to chaperone Itsuki. When Seizaki checks in with Route Guard 1 for an update on the situation, the man is unresponsive. Same goes for Route Guard 2, 3, 4, and 5. The 6th Route Guard responds that the escort team hasn't passed him yet, and the team relays the same information. Seizaki orders the team to wait until further orders. He states that they started losing communication with the other guards right after the escort team passed them, and realizes that something isn't right. Seizaki tries to communicate with the wife and son team, but no response is heard. Sakuro decides to check the situation herself. Seizaki isn't too worried about the wife and child because Kujin is with them. He wants Sakuro to prioritize the route guards. She updates him, saying that everything looks fine with the escort team. He then orders her to go check on guard route 5-1. Well, as soon as he's done talking, he hears a loud thump followed by the sound of Kujin yelling for him. Sasaki quickly exits the vehicle and is met with the sight of Kujin shot in the leg. His voice has a tremble to it and looks ill. Kujin reveals that he shot his own leg in the spur of the moment. It suddenly clicks. The woman they saw wasn't some random mother, but she was Magazi, with yet another one of her drastically changed appearance. He tells Sasaki that all she had to do was whisper softly in his ears for him to lose control. He warns the prosecutor to run away from the place and let go of the idea of catching her. Kujin really doesn't want him dead. Sasaki points out that his leg isn't injured that badly. He'll be fine. They just need to get back to Director Torao. Kujin stops him once more, emphasizing on the fact that this isn't about his injured leg. He tells Sasaki that he feels a carnal urge. His pupils start to shake, almost like he is on the borderline of going crazy. He throws himself back. Kujin's eyelids have gone black, and with a smile on his face, he picks up the pistol, shooting himself in the head. Sasaki hastily starts running, trying to get through to anyone from the teams. He fears that Magaze must have whispered in their ears as she passed by everyone, enough to make them all want to off themselves. He finally gets a response from Sakuro. She tells him that she is hiding backstage at NHC. He orders to not move from her spot. He'll be there in 3 minutes. Sakuro informs him that when she came back to the escort team after confirming that the guards route 1-5 were missing, she saw that for some reason, Mrs. Itsuki was also there. Sasaki alerts her that it's Magase. She notices Sakuro hiding. Sasaki orders her not to move from her spot, but she is determined to capture the evil woman with Torao's help and hangs up on Sasaki. He hurriedly makes his way backstage, only to be met with the sight of dead bodies. He then starts looking around for Sakuro, but only her stiletto is on the ground. The police force arrives at the scene. Sasaki is taken into the investigation room. The officer informs him that there was no sign of struggle or gunpowder around the dead bodies. They all willingly took their lives. Sasaki tries to tell him that Magase is the one behind it all, and she has abducted Sakuro, but the officer isn't buying any of it and says that the man is only in the state of shock after witnessing it all. Afterwards, Sasaki is in his office when he receives a link to a live stream from Sakuro's phone. When he opens it, he is met with the unsettling sight of Magase. Sasaki feels anger coursing through him. She talks into the camera, reminding him how they talked about the hero saving people, even though no one helps him. She then moves to the side, showing Sakuro stripped down to her undergarments and strapped to a slab. Magase then picks up a marker as she tells him that having people who actually understand the hero's dreams and helps him to save the world is way better. All the while, she is marking Sakuro's neck and limbs. Magase then shares that she is aware of the fact that what she is doing right now isn't right, and he'd tell her to stop. She wickedly tells him that they aren't too different because they are thinking the same thing, that this is bad, as she stands there with an axe in her hands. Sasaki realizes what the purpose of the receipt of an axe in Tsutsui's pocket was. He can only helplessly yell at the screen as she happily calls herself an evil person and brings the axe down on Sakuro's arm. Sasaki's son and wife are busy preparing lunch, unaware of the mental torture the man is going through. Meanwhile, Magase crazily keeps insisting that she and Sasaki are not different. The only difference is that some like good things and some bad. She brings down that blood-soaked axe on Sakuro's leg. Sasaki falls to his knees as Magase tells him to think about why she is doing all of this. Magase then says that she knows the man has been raised well and has never before thought of what evil really is, which is why she urges him to ponder over it today. She will help him understand and then demonstrates by chopping the other leg. Tears cascade from Sasaki's eyes as he hugs the screen and with a broken voice tells himself that he'll think about it all. Magase then gleefully chops off Sakuro's other arm as well, but not before encouraging him that he will surely understand it all. One night, Sasaki is at a bar. The atmosphere looks gleeful. However, it soon becomes clear that he is surrounded by the ghosts of his dead team. On the news, the parliamentary votes are announced in which 4 are neutral, while 48 members are in the favor of the suicide law, and other 48 are not. He has ghosts of Fumio, Toro, and Kujin sitting next to him. Kuji states that only Sakuro's death has been ruled out as murder. Fumio adds that the rest of the team is still considered dead by suicide, And on top of this, the police are covering up the so-called mass suicide from the public, because of which they can't even launch a large-scale investigation on Sakuro's death. Sasaki leaves the bar, waiting for the pedestrian signal to turn green when he notices someone like Magase from across the road. Without hesitation, he jumps into the busy traffic. The vehicles stop just in time. He hallucinates being surrounded by tons of Magases. When he follows one of them, she turns into Sakuro, asking him what justice means to him. He is at a loss of words as he falls to his knees. The scene changes to a car park. Sasaki is inside a car with Hunter. They talk about how Nomaru can't do anything about Itsuki now, because he ended up losing the parliamentary election. Moreover, Hunter can't publish any article on the team's suicide because they don't have any hard proof. The next morning, Morinaga summons Seizaki. They discuss that since the suicide law has been set into motion, the Nayuk's drug for euthanasia has started to sell, and a whole center has been dedicated to those who want to die. However, there has been a decline in suicide rate. Morinaga then apologizes for the grief he has put Seizaki through. He informs the latter of his own retirement. Seizaki then goes to Governor Sakuro's office to formally apologize about his niece's murder. The man assures him that he didn't do anything wrong as she died in the line of duty. Seizaki stands on the edge of a rooftop. The scene switches to his wife Hitomi and son Asuma going out shopping while he hangs out the laundry. As they leave, a headline pops up on the TV stating that Canada has also enacted the suicide law. Just then, the bell rings. A man named Samuel Hardy from the FBI stands at his door, demanding to know what happened on the night of the team's suicide. The scene switches to Washington, D.C., USA. A man named Alexander W. Woods narrates about himself. He was born to a normal family in Boston, but was an ailing child. As he couldn't go outside, he pondered over how he could do things. He didn't stop until he got the answer. He is a thinker and a problem solver. While living in his college dorm, he came across an online game where he met his wife, Emma. They ended up having a healthy child named Oliver. He then reads a newspaper in which Francis Grenoble has adopted the suicide law as well. Alex's only struggle is the time limit in the real world. Meanwhile, the Secretary of State, Taylor Griffin, is in the car with Assistant Nicholas Miller, discussing France's suicide law adoption. They talk about how that country has a high rate of suicides already. Griffin reads an article which states that Luca Gustave, the president of France, still hasn't made any comment regarding the matter. The French citizens are worried because Grenoble is a highly academic city. He wonders what Luca has to say about it because that man runs his mouth carelessly. Griffin goes to meet Edmund Giuliani, the chief of staff. They both discuss the new law. It started in Shiniki, but now it has spread to the country right next to theirs, aka Canada. They come up with the supposition that Grenoble and Canada's Halifax have adopted the law, because these cities contain a lot of universities, and those good in academics probably want to end their lives. Later, Griffin discusses the matter with the Foreign Affairs Minister of Japan, but the man doesn't give him any straight answers. Griffin has a feeling that Japan has lost control over Shiniki. Assistant Miller tells him that Japan is worried the whole thing will turn into a huge scandal. Griffin would rather have Japan throw a missile at them than some terrorist ideology. Oliver asks his father whether suicide is wrong or not because 3 cities have already turned it into a law. Alex doesn't have the answer to that, so he has resorted to searching for it. So far, he hasn't found many mentions of it in the Bible. They are interrupted by a news alert stating that now even Hartford, a city in the States, has also adopted the suicide law. This obviously calls for an urgent meeting. Griffin and Giuliani make their way towards the president's office. They know his decision isn't going to be a quick one, because he is known as a thinker. The president happens to be none other than Alex himself. During the meeting, the mayor of Hartford, Benicio Flores, is discussed. He is a Puerto Rican by birth and has attended universities in Hartford and Connecticut. The man is on his 2nd term of mayorship. Giuliani assures Alex that they will get the mayor on call for an explanation. The meeting has been dismissed, but not before the president tells them to involve the CIA and the FBI into the matter. Alex still hasn't reached a conclusion to the suicide issue. He's then connected to the mayor via video call. Apparently, the man felt that by adopting the law, he can improve the lives of those living in the city. Alex points out that he rushed to it without even going through the proper paperwork first. The mayor's reasoning doesn't even have any logic to it. He simply wants to arouse a frontier spirit in the people, and this is one courageous thing which he just couldn't stop himself from adopting. After listening to his argument, the president tells him that though in principle he can't object to the law adopted by Hartford, but still, the mayor should know that if the president really wants, he can deploy forces in Connecticut. Therefore, the mayor should be mindful. The call ends on that note as the mayor swallows down a nervous lump. The president then phones Luca, the president of France, but the man isn't bothered about the issue at hand. So much so that he doesn't even want to discuss it with the mayor of Grenoble, and says that the mayor probably thought that he can bring in some good business by adopting the suicide law. Alex tells him that it sounds like Luca isn't taking this social problem seriously. The man fires back that he is making it less of a problem. What they need to actually do is treat these people like they don't matter much. Alex tells him that he thinks Itsuki still has a trick up his sleeve. Luca makes it clear that he doesn't care about any of this. Afterwards, Alex is notified by the FBI agent, Thomas Bradham, about Magase. The agent informs him that she most likely is involved in the adoption of the suicide law in these different cities. When Alex sees her photos, he, like any other person, is baffled at the fact that it's the same woman in all of them. To better explain it all, the FBI agent brings in Seizaki as an investigator. He explains that all she needs to do is whisper into someone's ears, and that will make them want to die, because they cross the line and can't handle the feeling of ecstasy anymore. The president asks if he thinks she is involved in the other cities adopting the suicide law. Seizaki affirms and continues to say that she and Itsuki both are most likely up to no good. They are probably waiting for the suicide law to be applied until they make their next move. Seizaki informs him that he has come all the way to the US to catch her. The FBI agent suggests that they should send him to Hartford along with another agent. Some clues might have been left behind. He also asks the president to appoint the man as an FBI agent. This takes Alex by surprise. He states that Seizaki isn't even a US citizen, but the agent tells him that as the president of the USA, he can use his executive power to grant him an official status of an FBI agent without all the needed paperwork. He asks for the reason, and the agent gives him 3. The first one being that Seizaki is a highly capable special investigator in Japan. Secondly, he's a witness. Lastly, the man is dangerous. He's way too obsessed with catching Magase. After hearing the explanation, Alex tells the agent to give him a little more time to think over it, but they can gladly continue with the investigation. The search begins. Seizaki and Agent Hardy meet Hartford's mayor, but the man has never seen any of the women in the pictures before. Seizaki asks his reason for adopting the suicide law. The mayor doesn't give a satisfactory answer. He says that he felt like it. Seizaki looks irritated by that, and questions if the man even knows the difference between good and evil. The latter quotes the author Mark Twain, saying that evil exists because good is prevalent. The investigators end up staying at a motel where they continue their research. Seizaki suggests that Magase must have come into contact with the mayor in the previous week. Hardy pulls up an article on the mayor visiting a hospice named St. Flower. The men decide to visit the facility. A staff member accompanies them, informing them that the mayor had paid a visit to 3 people. One of them happens to be a woman. Seizaki asks to be taken to her. However, upon arrival, they see the woman taking her last breath. Her daughter, a blonde girl, is right beside her. Afterwards, while the agent sheds a tear for the girl's bravery, Seizaki analyzes the files of the mayor's visit. He notices that there is a delay of 10 minutes between meeting the patients and leaving the facility. When they inquire with the staff member about it, she relays that this was due to the fact that the mayor received a call from a family member of one of the deceased persons at the facility. She lets them hear the recording. All seems fine until the mayor tells her that the deceased is now on the other side with God. The line goes silent. The girl speaks again, and the change in her tone hits Seizaki hard. He can hear Magase loud and clear. He feels stripped naked as she continues to tell the mayor that there is no God. Once someone dies, then that's the end of it. Afterwards, the agent informs Seizaki that the call was made from Germany, but the exact location still needs to be identified. At that moment, they get the news alert that Germany's Heidelberg and Italy's Bologna have also adopted the law. Seizaki points out that this looks like a G6, referring to Germany, Italy, USA, France, UK, Japan, and later on Canada when they made an alliance, making it G7. The president and his cabinet have a video call meeting with Herrigel, the Chancellor of Germany. He tells them that he thinks Heidelberg's decision should be considered. Though the Chancellor doesn't agree with the law, he does mention that morality and law can change at some point in the future. What was previously considered right could later on be considered wrong. The problem is that they do not have enough time to make the decision whether suicide is correct or not. He also states that this is going to be a turning point in history. The Chancellor would rather have the people of Germany make this decision. Sasaki and the agent are out in the city of Hartford when they spot a girl climbing an abandoned bridge. Meanwhile, Alex goes to visit a priest. He tells the priest that he couldn't find any line in the Bible that stated anything about suicide. The priest says that there is that one commandment which states that, "Thou shalt not kill." The investigators hastily run towards the girl. They try to stop her as she stands on the edge of the broken bridge with a flower pot in hand. The priest continues to say that the 10 Commandments are a wide interpretation of 2 rules: thou shalt love thy Lord, thou shalt love thy neighbor. This makes Alex question if taking someone's life for the sake of your loved ones is actually all right. Does this mean that the 10 Commandments support ending yourself for the sake of your loved ones? The investigators are still struggling to get the girl to safety, but she is adamant on joining her mother. The girl happens to be the same blonde-haired kid. She insists that it's all right since the authorities have given her a go-ahead. The men are astonished to hear this. She jumps off before they can save her. Later on, Sasaki and Hardy meet the mayor again. They make him listen to the call recording. He confirms that he made that decision of adopting the suicide law right after the call was made. He has also heard about the little girl that jumped off the bridge, but then states that the law hasn't been made official yet. The agent gets angry upon hearing him say that. To make matters worse, he even told her that she should accept death because it's not something to be feared. Apparently, his reason is that it saved her from the despair she would have otherwise faced with her mother gone, and calls it her choice. Alex and Emma are discussing the suicide topic when she tells him that he should follow his intuition. Alex seems to have an eureka moment, because in the next scene, Sasaki is having dinner with them. Afterwards, the 2 men discuss things alone. Alex gets to know that Hartford's mayor was being controlled by Magasi. However, what the president has really called him over for is to know about Sasaki's point of view on the suicide law, so that he can make a decision because the investigator has suffered a lot of losses. Sasaki confesses that he lied when he told Bradham that he wants to be an FBI agent to catch that evil woman, because in reality, he wants to get a hold of the specially issued gun. His aim is to take her life. Alex asks if it's revenge for the people he has lost. Sasaki goes into a detailed account, talking about Fumio and how he hung himself, about Kujin and how he ended up shooting himself, and Sakuro, whom he looked up to, ended up getting chopped up while still alive. He despises Magase because of what she has done. Alex listens to him with a heavy heart. Sasaki wants to take her life so that others can live theirs. The president asks him about his family. Sasaki shows him a couple of photos. Alex can't help telling him that his wife looks like a very cheerful person. Sasaki gleefully tells him that she has been his light in the darkest of moments. Alex then surprises Sasaki by announcing that he is an FBI agent now, but he has to go back to his family and should use his weapon for the right thing. The scene then changes to everyone rushing to their seats, as Itsuki is about to begin his press conference. The man delightfully announces that Southampton in the UK has also adopted the suicide law 30 minutes ago. This makes up a total of 7 cities that have adopted the suicide law. Itsuki says that they need to work together in navigating this new revolution down the path of success. He then calls upon the leaders of the suicide law cities for the first ever meeting in Shiniki in 4 days' time. The president watches with his mouth agape. He seems to have realized something. He finally states with relief that he doesn't have to decide whether suicide is right or wrong because the summit will do it for him. He can now start focusing on other pressing matters. Afterwards, there's a news report on the G7 summit in Upper Bay, New York. The summit will discuss whether the suicide law should be accepted or not. So far, Canada and Italy are in favor of it, while the USA, Japan and Germany have a neutral standing, whereas France and the UK are against it. Before it begins, Sasaki warns Alex that Itsuki is up to no good since his summit arrangement is coinciding with the G7 one. But who he really needs to watch out for is Magase. The scene changes to a metaphor used for Magase from the Bible, specifically the beast with 7 heads in the book of Revelation. It is said that each head represents a king, and on top of it sits a woman drunk with the blood of saints. She will be burnt in fire by the Lord. The woman is called the Whore of Babylon. The discussion begins with the European Commission President Recap-Kun as the mediator. The leaders are asked to first explain their positions. Dan Carey, the Prime Minister of Canada, starts off by stating that Canada is in favour of it just like it is in the favour of homosexuality. He calls such laws progressive, which gives the people a freedom to make decisions for themselves, saying that this helps the person to rid himself of any physical constraints imposed on him. Francis Luca is quick to jump in, questioning if the Canadian leader has even considered the impact it will have on a majority, and not just a small fraction of people. There will be a huge decline in the number of those alive. A leader should be able to think 100 years into the future. He then states that France doesn't accept the law because of the negative effect it'll have on society, whereas Italy would rather have the citizens decide than the government. Though not neutral, Cannavaro explains that it'll help in such a way that if this is law a good thing, then it'll spread, and if not, then it won't last. Germany joins in. It started as neutral, but has changed its decision in the favour of the law. The reason being that if the law gets rejected today, then it won't be given sufficient time. This way, they will continue to investigate the issue to bring them to a contradictory decision. The UK's Prime Minister, Flora Lowe, is appalled by his statement. She tries to knock some sense into them by stating that they are leaders to entire countries and people learn from their actions. They need to teach people something that humans must never forget. It's the fact that death should be mourned, and the UK doesn't agree with the law. The Japanese Prime Minister Toshio Fukuzawa swoops in to calm them down before a war actually breaks out. He also knows that Japan is greatly responsible for what it has brought upon them, but would remain neutral to the decision of the law. His one condition is that there is a unanimous decision made in this summit to avoid any conflicts. The last one to speak on the topic is USA's Alex. But the man still hasn't reached an answer of his own. He gives them something else to ponder over. Something he claims is much more simple and will help them make the right decision. It's the standard of what's good and what's evil. The UK's Prime Minister is the first to agree, and the rest follow suit. The members dive right into the discussion. They start off by debating over good, because all laws are made in accordance with what is considered good. Hakin mentions that good is something that is morally correct. Fukuzawa says that morals are social norms. Luca states that good and evil wouldn't exist if only a single individual was present in the world. Floa disagrees, saying that they would still exist, for instance, being virtuous and pure. Herigel mentions that she is still referring to sociability. They then discuss moral code and how good prevails because of the idea that God is watching them. They keep debating till Hakin mentions the trolley problem, where one has to pull the lever of the track on which a trolley with a broken brake hurls towards either 5 individuals working on one track or towards a single individual on the other track. The numbers saved obviously matters. Then there is another one called a survival lottery, where one healthy individual is killed. His organs are then transplanted to 5 individuals in need of one. Floa comments that it is still considered murder. Herigel states that there is a clear difference. A person's death in an accident is unavoidable, but if a person is willingly chosen to die, then that feels sinful. Alex seems to be nearing the answer. He realizes that if the act of living is nearer to the foundation, then the repulsion towards the suicide law is correct. His thoughts get interrupted by Luca shaking him back to reality. The members have been suddenly called upon by Itsuki. He is being broadcasted live. The man explains that about 100,000 people have gathered near the wall of the city hall in favor of the law, and some of them want to die. However, there is a problem. A woman wants to jump off City Hall's building instead of taking the drug created for it. She is unsure if she should die or not. He would like to request America's President Alexander W. Wood to talk to her. This is the sort of thing that the president can't get himself out of, because it will be considered that he is indirectly responsible for the girl. Sezaki assumes that she is most likely Ai Magase. Talking to her is going to be dangerous, especially for the interpreter. Sezaki is about to volunteer, but Hardy steps in. To lighten up the mood, he comments on Sezaki's beginner-level English, which won't be sufficient for the interpretation. The rest of the members of the summit are flabbergasted. Prime Minister Fukuzawa joins them defeated, after failing to make the media stop airing it live for the world. They have no choice but to witness what the suicide law has brought upon them. Alex introduces himself. The girl then says that she is a 19-year-old named Kanai Kuyo, and surprisingly doesn't want to die, but she doesn't want to live either. A little backstory about the girl is that she got pregnant. The boyfriend didn't want anything to do with it, and the parents told her to get an abortion, but she stood firm and gave birth to a boy. However, soon after he died of SIDS, she became depressed, but after a while things became quiet in her mind. She asks the president whether she should die or not. Alex tells her that it seems like they are both searching for what good really is, and unfortunately, he doesn't have the answer yet. Therefore, she should wait a little while. He assures her that if he figures out that she can commit suicide, then he'll let her know, and better yet, he'll join her as well. The girl bursts out laughing, which in turn makes him laugh as well. Luca, watching this scene, calls Alex an idiot. The girl thanks him and promises to wait for his answer. After the call ends, Alex is still thinking about what good is. He wonders if he stalled her answer, because he wanted her to live a little longer. He then remembers that there are laws of nature, the survival of the fittest. What remains will remain, and the rest will disappear. He knows there is another word used for it. Suddenly he remembers Seizaki using the word continuing while he was telling him what justice meant to him. The president is at last able to figure out that anything that continues to exist is good. He hurriedly picks up his earpiece, ordering Hardy to connect him to Kanai one more time, but instead, he gets Megase on the other end. The man, as if under a spell, immediately gets up. Griffin and Giuliani think that he is rejoining the G7 summit. Seizaki quickly rushes towards the interpreter's room, but they are already dead. Griffin picks up the actual earpiece left behind by the president. Seizaki tells him the news of Megase in the building. Griffin tenses upon hearing this and quickly orders the rest of the security to capture the president and not to use any Bluetooth devices. As soon as he manages to complete his sentence, the men start shooting themselves. Meanwhile, Alex is running towards the rooftop like a happy child. He thinks about how Adam and Eve were tempted by Satan to take a bite from the forbidden fruit, but he is about to do the same because it's so enticing. The rest of the G7 summit leaders are advised to stay put until the situation is under control. Seizaki sees the security dead at the entrance of the staircase and takes out his gun. As he opens the door to the rooftop, he is met with the sight of the president standing on the edge. A news helicopter spots them. Everyone is utterly shocked to see the president like that. He apologizes to Seizaki and states that he feels like he is going to snap. Seizaki is reminded of Kujin's words before his death. Alex tells him that he has finally figured out what good and evil means, and it looks like they both came to the same conclusion. Seizaki nods in affirmation. The president then proceeds to say that now that he has found the answer for what good means, he'll be lying to Kanai and the whole world, which he doesn't want to do. The little girl's voice rings in Seizaki's ears about how the authorities had assured her of her decision. Seizaki can't help but think about the man's family and his own, and how Alex had advised him to use the gun for the right thing. As he keeps on apologizing, calling Seizaki a good man, the prosecutor pulls the trigger, shooting him in the chest. The president falls lifeless with a smile on his face. The whole world watches in disbelief. Hitomi is too stunned to react. Seizaki is freaking out. Megase appears from behind. She asks him what good means, and he utters, "to continue." She then asks about evil, and he replies, "to end." He's pointing his gun at her, and Megase lifts up her hands, forming a finger gun. After a few seconds, a shot's fired, and everything goes white. Afterwards, a kid returns a woman's hat blown away with the wind, and voila, Megase Ai is still very much alive. We can only assume that Seizaki has met a tragic end. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.